Hey, it's Shawn Rossbach and Nathan Thornberry here. And Shawn brought up a great point for his inspectors, for some of our other inspectors in the family here, they need some training on sales, on what you say on site for not high-end mold assessments, not full out, full blown evaluations, but just mold testing associated with the home inspection. And there's just really not a lot of material out there for the sales side. So that's what we're here to discuss today. We suck pretty bad at this, don't we, Shawn?
Absolutely.
Yes, we're horrible. You know what we're good at, though, and I want to make sure that everybody has this point, including your guys who call into our offices all the time. If they have a question as to a procedure, they can talk to their lab rep. If they have a question as to what materials they should be buying, or how to get them ordered, lab rep or inspectorshop.net or Mike Dorr and his team, anybody can take care of those things. If they have a complex question, which we will not be addressing today, about the results of a mold test, if you're getting a question from a client and they don't want to talk to the lab, they're already talking to you, or you have a sticky situation, you pick up the phone, you call your lab rep, and they will get you in touch with Doc Shane, myself, or one of two additional lab directors in training that we have right now, that are every single day spending at a minimum of an hour right now, and it's only going to increase with volume here, talking to clients like yourself and explaining and interpreting reports. So let's just keep today simple. It's a home inspector on site. They're there talking to a client, and what do they say in order to sell some mold? I'm going to share something on my screen first before we go any further. And I'm going to pull up this right here. Here we go. So this you should be familiar with. This is your resources page at recallcheck.com, at Inspector Lab, PriorityLab, SewerGuard.com, HomeownersResource.net. All of the websites go to the same place. Really, they're just different search functions. So if you want to search for a chain of custody, a lab report, you would need to go to PriorityLab or InspectorLab.com. But the sections like the resources are the same everywhere. And, the first section has some great marketing pieces for 2020. The second session has a bunch of social media ads. We're going to skip over all that. We're going to go down to section, it's 5 or 6 or 7, depending on what your service levels are, because every time we add a service for your company, it adds a section. And in this section, you'll find everything that you need for kind of the basic, running a mold testing enterprise. And the first thing I want you to see is this mold test menu. And I'm going to use this as an example, or to guide a conversation that one might have with a home buyer while at an inspection, because there are only a few reasons why somebody might get a mold test, and you should be very familiar with them. You should be able to talk about them, whether you have this piece of paper, which was designed to guide that conversation, or not. So the outside is, just some basic ads. The inside of this, which is customized to your company, offers 3 types of testing. And these are your 3 basic types of mold test. You have a surface test, most often done with a swab. You have an indoor air quality test, again, most often done with a cassette, a sport trap, and a vacuum pump like the one you see here, or like the Breeze ETs. And then there's the indoor air quality testing, along with a comprehensive moisture evaluation. Or in Florida, if you're a licensed mold assessor and you're going to do a full assessment and give a protocol to a mold remediation company, that's what that third section is for. And that's generally not what we're selling at home inspection. So just to simplify this conversation, let's talk about just surface testing and indoor air quality testing. Only one reason why you do surface testing. Shawn, what do you think that might be?
If you see something.
Exactly. So you see something that has gives you concern. It's in an area of high moisture. It looks like there could have been a moisture issue before. It could be that you're just in Florida and there's high moisture everywhere. You can't you can't turn off your air conditioner for more than 10 minutes before your house gets soggy and wet and the drywall falls off. So the reason why mold might be there are many and varied. But when you're looking at a substance on a wall, on a cabinet, under a sink, near an HVAC system, near mechanicals, wherever it might be, you see this substance, and when you point it out, traditionally in home inspection, the note in your inspection report might say something like a microbial substance was noted in the windowsill of bedroom number 3, and that's all you say, and it doesn't say mold. So what that leaves the buyer with is it leaves them at a disadvantage in the real estate transaction and in the inspection response to say to the seller, hey, there is a mold issue that needs to be handled like a mold issue. Don't just have a handyman come in here and spread the things around. And for not very much, most inspection companies are charging $75 to $150, for a surface sample while they're on site. And that's an easy sell to give somebody ammunition to ask the seller to fix mold as if it is mold. And there's really not too many other reasons for a surface sample. I will say this: surface samples are okay in an attic space. They're okay to do in a crawl space, in a subfloor area, wherever you see something that might be mold, other than like outside. That's kind of ridiculous. Pull out your pressure washer or a mild detergent. Clean the outside of your house every once in a while. But other than that, you can do a swab test everywhere. One question we get quite frequently, so if you were looking for a question you might need to have, Shawn, is like, one, is the house made of concrete? Because if it's totally made of concrete, you can just spray that thing off. Nobody will ever know. But some people ask, what are these tape lifts for? And you've seen the tape lifts, right?
Yes.
Yes. So here's the problem with tape lifts. People tend to use them and oversample whatever they're trying to pull a mold sample from. So if it was me and I was just trying to have a simple mold testing sequence for my guys, simple processes, I wouldn't even have tape lifts on their truck. Just to be clear, if you're full out mold assessor and the reasons for it, and know how to do it, and what to look for as far as debris and what might make it an unreadable sample, then great. And that surface test is going to come back and confirm that it's mold, but really it's going to confirm that there is growth or no growth exhibited. So we're looking for sporulation. That's basically what we look for under the microscopes. And we take those swabs, and then we take what's on them and we prep them on a slide, put them under a microscope, and that goes straight into the InspectorLab PriorityLab system. And that report will go out to the client. And depending on your settings, most inspectors just have those settings where that report goes straight out to the client. The inspector never sees it. Some have us emailing it, the system automatically emailing it to a predetermined email address, and then that office administrator is adding it into a Next Inspect or an ISN. Some are taking those reports and adding it to a longer summary, but most inspectors don't do that. It just depends on where you've been and what your qualifications are and how you feel about simplicity of mold test. So that's as simple as I can get on the surface testing, and it's a pretty easy conversation to have. Shawn, you're buying this house. I'm doing the inspection. We see something, and unfortunately, I can't tell what that is. I could taste it. I could sniff it. I could do all sorts of things to it right here. Nothing would confirm whether it is in fact mold or not. And if it is mold, that would make it so that there's a special procedure for removing it. And so for $75, since I'm already here, or $150 since I'm already here, we can take a sample and have those results to you tomorrow to add to your inspection contingency response. Would you like me to do that now, or would you like to think about it and we can come back to this spot later? Simple enough. Would you like to change that script, Shawn? Do you have a better script than what I just did?
We do something very similar.
Very similar. Good. Okay. So then there's the indoor air quality testing part. Now this one's a little bit more complex because, what the reasons people might do it aren't as simple as the swab. It's because they smell a musty smell, because we believe that there have been moisture intrusion issues, and we're checking because a mold situation could be growing behind a wall. It could be sporulating, and there'd be no way to know unless you pull the sample. It could be that, and you have to be careful with this one because you don't want to pry on this. You don't want to ask for this information. When it comes to you, you have to know how to respond. But it could be that the buyer has a child, family member, someone who lives in the household who has an issue with their respiratory system. They could have asthma, they could have an allergy, whatever it might be. And those folks usually have a medical professional that has advised them, hey, get an indoor air quality test if you're going to buy a house. So you don't have to have the discussion with them of what the results of the indoor air quality test will do. You tell them, hey, we do an indoor air quality test. The focus of that is largely mold and mold spores, but it finds other things too. We'll get you a copy of that. You can share it with whoever. Obviously, we're not healthcare professionals and can't speak to any of that. But if you've been advised to have those kind of tests, we have the equipment on the truck. And since we're here already, it's only $250 to $350, whatever your fee might be. And that's going to be a much reduced fee compared to an industrial hygienist who comes out for a one-off. He's going to be charging $800 to $1,200. So I think it's fair to say at that point, this is the kind of test that, to get the air quality portion and not even the level of moisture intrusion investigation that we do on a standard home inspection, you're going to pay 3 to 4 times this regularly. So that's a fair thing to say. But otherwise, it's that musty smell. Hey, I smell it too, or I don't. I don't know if I'm going to say I don't, actually. I think I'm going to say, wow, yeah, that smells horrible. But I don't know if I want to tell them that their nose is bad. Then they move in and later tell you that, hey, if you had just tested like I told you to, you dork, I wouldn't be suing you right now. But let's forget about all that. Just go, if they smell something, hey, this is a way to make you feel better. And maybe we find nothing. Many times when we do a test and there's a quote musty smell, it comes back just fine. And so then there's the post remediation, there's the health issue, there's the musty smell, and that's about it. If you absolutely know that there's a recent or past water event, then I would be suggesting it. I think this is just an integrity issue. I don't like the idea of going to a client who's at an inspection and we have no musty smell, no health issues, no indication of moisture other than the fact that it's a house sitting in the middle of Florida. And we start our inspection with a conversation about IAQ testing. I think the less reasons there are to do it, the less likely you would be to do it if it was a home you were buying. The later in the inspection that conversation comes up. But I do think that in states like Florida, wherever you have high humidity and wherever you have a large swath of the population that has health issues or health concerns, particularly, Florida, death from old age and everything that comes with it. I think it's one of those things where you should be asking on every inspection, and at least at the end when you're going through things, doing a review, saying, okay, last thing, I have this mold menu here. We didn't talk about this because I didn't see any visible mold as we were doing our walkthrough. But if you would like me to pull an indoor air quality test while I'm here, it's only $250. We can have it done in 20 minutes and be out of your way. How'd I do, Shawn? Did I miss anything?
I mean, it seems to the point.
Okay.
I do have some questions when it's time for the question times.
Well, let me give you one other thing that you might pull out at that time that you're offering this up. Here's that mold test accuracy guarantee. The mold safe, that is the lab version that we came out when we launched the lab 6.5 years ago. And so if you have sort of a little flip book for here's what a sample report looks like, and that's also in your resources page. You just click the sample report and it'll come out, and then you can say here's what a result might look like. If we did an error analysis, we have our control, that's our outside. So that gives us a basis by which we will compare relative levels inside the home. And then here's the error analysis, and here's a swab showing growth. Now, this might show no growth, and that would be fine. And if this error analysis here of this family room had been at lower numbers, it does not have to be at 0, by the way. But if it had been at substantially lower numbers on these Stachybotrys, for instance, a percent of total 14% and a raw count of 82 of Stachybotrys is in every circumstance, that's going to be a high one. Every once in a while, you'll see a 1 or 2 count on Stachybotrys, and that could have flown in on the back of a mosquito. But if it's this high, it's going to be nailed. But if it was lower, it might have been fine, and this would be how a report looks. And so it just very simply shows you whether it's a control, a normal, problem, or growth. And when you're showing that to the client, make sure the agent sees this, because agents in your market, they are getting these long, drawn out, nonsensical reports that say nothing from your competitors for 3 times the cost. And they will use you more for the inspections if you're doing the mold testing the right way. There's another thing I had in here just in case you hadn't seen.
Are you saying you want them to see what a mold report will look like and explain it to them on site?
I mean, if the feeling is right, like you can have the whole just an easy binder with those slide in, the plastic sheets, the clear sheets, and say, here's what a report will look like, so you know what's coming tomorrow. If they buy when they're looking at the mold menu, then don't show them anything else. They already bought, you're good to go. Also, in your resources page, you'll find all our accreditations, certifications, best in industry, everything, and also an environmental inspection and sampling agreement. So if you don't have an agreement and you feel like you want to have one, then check that out, look at the resources, and maybe add some of that verbiage. It's all yours.
Is this necessary to do mold testing?
Well, I think you know where I stand on these things.
Yeah, you don't need any paperwork, right? Just show up, have a good time, get some cash, and move on.
Pretty much. Look, if you're doing an assessment, if you're putting together a protocol, if you're walking into an issue with a substantial environmental hazard, now the risk is kind of high. Okay, throw an agreement at them. If you're just doing a simple swab test on an inspection report, no, don't be pulling out an agreement on somebody there. That's nuts.
Is there a line that we could add to our regular agreement that says like, hey, if we do a test, like don't sue us for any reason?
You could. There's another option there, which is to take our new client rights, obligations, and resource section and add it to your inspection agreements, because it sort of addresses that. And it addresses that because companies like yours have already covered the mold issue. It's not a part of your inspection agreement. It's part of a warranty. It's a separate thing. They have an obligation under your agreement, if you put this section in particularly, to make a claim and go through the process on that. And if we fail, we'd look like poopy if we caused you a problem.
Right. And that was just an addition to our agreement, or I thought what you did was replace the agreement with a new, updated, better one.
No, let me pull this up so that we can see that. So
I thought it was like, get rid of your old agreement, use the new one that we wrote up.
So, and I will I'll clarify that here in a moment. So here's the client rights, obligations, and resources section to add to your inspection agreements. So the idea would be that you find whatever section says, hey, if you have a problem, you got to inform us in X amount of days. We're only
Right.
responsible up to X, blah, 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 all those things. Now you can keep a limit of liability section separate. I'm fine with that. But but anything else as far as the process of, make us aware, if you have an arbitration agreement, get that the hell out of there. Oh my God. Those are horrible. And then replace it with this. And it ties them right to this. One, they have to inform you first. You get to go and look at it. And the client is required to make warranty claims on anything respective and relevant to the issue. Well, the mold safe coverage is very relevant to any mold issue. So I would argue you're covered. And
we have our insurance with you too, which we've been really happy with for many reasons. But if a client decides to be done, which honestly has never happened with anything to do with mold testing, but if something were to happen with this, that's covered between RWS warranty system we have, the full package, and the RWS insurance system we have, right?
Yes. So between, using our lab, which makes us the target, because we put out the report, we sent it directly to them, and we said they either had a problem or did. So we've already put ourselves in the line of fire. Then we gave them a warranty document through you that says, if you ever have a problem, call this number. Then we gave them an agreement from you that says, hey, if you ever have a problem, make a claim with those guys. And then we said, hey, if you ever want to sue, this company, well, make sure that you take a legal action naming RWS Insurance Services LLC. For the first time in home inspection history, a insurer said, name me in your agreement, invite them to sue me. And before now, it's always been let's keep this a secret and never admit fault, and don't let them know who we are, which is nonsense. If you're either responsible for it or you're not. Grow a pair.
Awesome. Question. So you have how many lab, what do you call the people that look under the microscope? Technicians?
Those are technicians, yes.
How many of those guys do you have?
I don't know.
A lot.
Yeah. I mean,
and how many?
Let me say it this way: dozens. And
dozens. Right. And of those dozens,
I would say by the end of this year, we'll definitely be in the 40 to 50 category, but
okay,
that's
awesome.
Not a lot more than that.
On average, what does a lab technician handle like in a day? Like how many can they process in a day?
So at a typical lab, if you have a local lab where they have to do the hand counts of each spore, and even the national labs, they do hand counts. You're looking at maybe 3 to 4 samples in an hour that they can do, because then they have to document all that. Then it has to go through a system. Then it has to get put into a report. And a lot of these labs are using like Word documents. It's crazy. But with our guys, they're anywhere from guys and gals, they're anywhere from 6 to 8 if per hour.
That's like double what most labs do then.
Oh yeah. Well, and they don't have to do the hand counting because they're doing it on an iPad. And
okay, I saw the iPad last time I was at the lab.
Right. So those are on these stands, and they know where as the penicillium button is. They know where the Stachybotrys is. They know where the Cladosporium button is, and so they're just clicking as they're going through, and then our software automatically does all the extrapolations and calculations that every other lab has to do on a piece of paper.
That's awesome. So one of the questions that comes up a lot is sometimes people don't believe in mold itself. How do you get people to understand, mold is important. We should be testing it at every inspection. And by not doing it, we're doing a disservice to our clients.
Well, I think some of that is going away. I think that this last year and a half has accelerated the acceptance of, of mold more than the past 5 to 10 years has. I think that, you go 20 to 30 years ago, those were some pretty weird times. And really the reason it was so quickly accepted right away in the mid 90s was because of the liability factor, and because all of the insurers said, okay, that's it. We have nothing to do with mold. We're never going to cover any mold. And, they kind of got their butts kicked on that one later on, but they, because of that issue, it became a known thing in real estate particularly that, you're on your own on this one. And then people just keep hearing more and more. We had those, the black mold news stories in the late 90s and early 2000s, and those kind of, they petered off. But but now it's just accepted. We're gonna check for anything that sounds like it could get us sick. And I think the number of mold samples is going up. All you have to do is make sure that you ask. You have to be like a drive-through. Do you want fries with that? Or would you like to try that apple fritter thing? I don't go to fast food, but whatever they serve there, they're offering, and they're offering it regularly, and they're doing it in 42 seconds at the window. You got to make your inspectors a little bit like that on this. It needs to be a requirement that they ask for that. And then any other ancillaries that are, common in your area, of course, but we're talking about mold today.
What do you think keeps mold sales down when it's so important?
Well, I don't think mold sales are down. When we came out with the mold menu, and when we got into the business, the number of mold samples done in the industry tripled virtually overnight. So it became a much more accepted thing. We have inspectors in the top group doing 30, 40, even as high as 60% mold samples per inspection. So 6 out of 10 of their inspections are getting it at times. I think the one thing that keeps it down the most is when inspectors go, oh, I'm already there for an inspection, but I'm going to charge $350, $450, $500 for a mold test and do a 3-part thing. And then I'm going to, do one of these separate reports and that sort of thing. Well, that doesn't work. I have inspectors that are charging, what some would look at and go, wow, that's a very low number for this on-site IAQ. And it's like, okay, that sucks, but the pumps run while they're inspecting. It's not adding much overhead at all. And as long as it's, a multiple of what you pay for the laboratory services, then you can feel good about it, and you can hit very high numbers by making it a no-brainer. What would be the number? Ask yourself this: what would be the number that you were there getting an inspection, or one of your buddies across the country was doing an inspection on a house you were looking at, and he said, I'm here anyway, I'll do it for $200. And you're like, well, crap, I'll take that all day long. And so if you make it an obvious decision, I think that helps. I think people try to charge a little bit too much on mold, and then they try to overcomplicate it. And by the way, in the hierarchy of mold liability, and I know we talk about liability too much in this industry, and I don't mean to harp on it, but if you don't test for mold at all, you have the highest chance by a multiple of getting sued over a mold issue. If you do your own reports and make it, I'm a mold genius, I'm going to write this big assessment thing. Okay. If you do that, you have the second highest chance of being sued for a mold issue. If you let these tests just go out simple, like a radon test, it's either 4.0 or over, or it's under. If you handle mold like that, which is what we've tried to do and what we're doing with asbestos next, you're going to do fine, and you're going to have very little liability, and you're going to sell a lot. Keep going. Your questions are good.
All right. So out of the 400 plus inspections we did last week, we sold right around 30. So it's like a 7% sell-through rate. What do you think our sell-through rate should be, so that I know a direction to go to? And, like it should it be higher? Is 7% great? Is 7% crap?
If you're not at 15% and you're in a very humid state like Florida, I think you're a little light.
Okay.
If you were over 10, I could still buy. I mean, because we're getting into a situation where your connection and my connection to the guy on the ground talking to
I don't know most of the guys anymore,
Right. So, have they, And it used to be, I mean, we've had events where you brought a bunch of dudes with Max shirts on, like they come in, they have that direct communication with me, with our lab director, with, in a more casual environment. Well, that's not something that's scalable. So I think it's naturally going to go down a little bit, but I think this is just too low. If you were a small company and you had, I say small company, 5 or less inspectors, and you knew them all really well. 5 is a large company in our industry, but
right.
You know what I'm saying. And very respectable, but you know them all at that point. You should be at 30% plus if you are anywhere other than like an arid state like Arizona, or yeah, like if you're in Arizona, New Mexico, yeah, you're going to sell 5%.
I just think it's our guys maybe not believing in mold enough. And I know it's kind of silly to say that, but I feel maybe they don't know how much it actually helps people to make these decisions.
Well, a lot of this comes from personal experience. So if you've had a child with respiratory issues and it was exposed later on that it was an environmental issue, you moved them out of one bedroom into another, you came back, you did a mold test, you found the leak, you found the pile of snot looking wet goopy cladosporium that was right there next to his duct. Well, then of course you're going to be not a believer. You're going to know because you will have had the test done. You will have seen the results changing only one variable. So this isn't something you have to believe in, like Puff the Magic Dragon or whatever. It's not that people believe in that. It's just a song, but you know what I'm saying. Like it's not something you have to believe in.
Right.
This is scientific. If you want to go and take a college course on it, you could. Or you could just have the people that do that guide you appropriately. Out of everybody at our lab, I think it's like 40% of them have a master's.
Wow.
It's crazy. They are all continuing their education all the time too. Like I have multiple that are going for PhDs, multiple that are going from their bachelor's to their master's, and some, just getting a start that are, preparing slides, assistants and whatnot. This is a serious thing. There's a reason there's a whole industry of mold remediation professionals, of antimicrobial chemicals that you see lining the shelves at every home store. This is not based in fantasy.
Right. So in today's market of the client looks at 50 houses, puts in 72 offers and gets 0 homes. We finally show up to an inspection. The agent is like, I hope you have the blindest inspector ever, that can't get out of his car and inspects from the walkway. How do we deal with introducing the mold conversation to an already extremely stressed situation where we're then the deal killers? We're already the deal killers for existing, and we're trying to have a nice conversation. Let me explain this. And you're walking around and we see stuff. And even if it's little, hey, look, I found something over here. As a matter of fact, in our process, I don't know if you're aware of this, we go sample it and bring it back to the client and hold up the baggie and say, hey, look what I found. In this baggie right here, this looks really disgusting. And I believe that we should test this and send this to the lab. So we don't have to go there. I'll show you where I got it from. And if you don't want it today, I'm throwing it in the garbage.
Right.
But some agents freak out and, we're not allowed to even talk in some cases.
Well, and that's where,
like, how do we manage this? What we really need to bring to the client and, our referral source that will hate us.
So this is where, it's an art, not a science sometimes. And you have to have an amazing chat with your guys about, okay, here's how to identify a buyer's agent, particularly. It's not that we ignore the listing agent, but it's not the same severity level. But here's how you identify a buyer's agent that is incredibly uncomfortable and where you start rolling it back. And so with your guys, you need to have like, here's our standard operating procedure. Here is our operating procedure involving a parachute. So you can jump out of that plane and take a different route. like, okay, we're kind of done here. And you know, you have to let that agent sort of guide their client. It is their client. They have that fiduciary responsibility. And, you know, do you let them go over the top? I think this is a much bigger thing than I can answer in one sitting here, Shawn. But you know, there should be like, here's a level at which you kind of put things on pause and say, hey, I have a bucket out in my car. I need to go use it real quick. I'll be right back. And you call the office and you say, dude, I have an agent here telling this client that everything I'm finding is bullshit. I need a supervisor here, or I need the owner on the phone with this agent, or I need some help because you know I'm not going to agree with something. And your guys are great. I know because I see their inspection reports and all of the backup when we have a claim, and all of our top companies, man, you know, they really do a great job of protecting that client. If the agent is getting in the way of that in a substantive way, then that needs to be something that's a conversation between a supervisor and owner of them. That would be my best advice. As far as, do you offer it in front of them? I think you're going to end up offering it in front of them, and they're going to go, oh yeah, we don't need that. You know, like, I think that you're going to get through much of the process, and then you go, okay, no problem, just fine. It's just something that we offer, and you know, some of our clients get it, and we do it for super cheap while we're here at the inspection. Just another service with Max. Let's go over that inspection now. Just divert. Go to the other conversation.
Yeah, we have some amazing realtors out there that are like, hey, you do anything that they talk about, because they actually really, really care about their client. And then we have some other ones that maybe are a little more junior or less experienced that go, hey, we got to get this to closing, and maybe aren't thinking about client first. And then later on they call us and go, well, now what do I do? And I'm like, hey, well, you know, if we did testing, we have these warranties, we have the stuff that can protect your client. And, you know, you cut us off at the hands. What are we supposed to do now?
So this is what I call the grandfather paradox in real estate. Okay. You know, the grandfather paradox,
Of course.
right? Yeah. But I say that to people. People are lost at what the grandfather paradox is most of the time, like 95% of the time. But okay, so a lot of inspectors, and we have some very passionate ones, some amazing people that we work with that go, oh man, you know, I'm not going to work with that kind of agent that does that. Or, you know, they take a very aggressive approach. And my response to that always is, hey, look, if you're not there, somebody else is going to be. You know, you can take a soft approach to convincing over time, be their trusted resource. But at the end of the day, you can't be the world's police of home inspection. Unless you're an ASHI member, then you buy their badge, and and you're the inspection cop. Next.
Water testing. You know, we've never done water testing. It's something that we have talked about. It's just, it was always like, oh, you got to keep this in your fridge and you got to do this and that. It always felt like a lot of work. Is there any improvements to make that better, easier, faster?
Yeah, so let me give you a few improvements. One, we're going to have a mailer that we're developing right now that's going to be a little bit more convenient, easier to ship than the other one. All branded with us. You know, it'll have my face on the outside, so all the FedEx guys, yeah, they start to know who I am. No, seriously though, it will be a better packaging with a very simple instruction manual, and taking these water samples is super simple. We're talking first draw for lead. We're talking, you know, burn the end and you know, disinfect for the bacteria test, and yes, get it over to us very quickly. One of the challenges with getting it to us quickly has been historically, and will not be for long, that these water labs are closed on the weekends, like all of them. So if you have a local lab that you can walk in, it's usually, you know, expensive, inconvenient, etc. We solved that for mold, but mold samples don't expire in 48 hours. So what we've done is we've opened up a water lab, and we'll have the simple instructions for your guys, piece of cake stuff. and easy way to ship them, and an easy way to sell it. And we're going to be open on the weekends so that you can take a water sample any day that you're there. You don't have to, as we get bigger, as you guys scale, it becomes very difficult to schedule a guy to go out 2 days early for the water sample, and then the thing cancels on you.
Happens. You talked about speed of service. So now that we have operations in Florida and Texas, I know that we have the lab in Florida, which I literally drive to every once in a while. How long does it take to get the mold samples or anything else from our Texas locations down to this lab, or do they go somewhere else?
Well, it goes about the same amount of time. I mean, all of our labels, no matter whether you're in Florida, Texas, Washington State, Hawaii might be a challenge, but they seem to make it to us. I mean, I don't know how those people live, but it seems nice there. And then there's let's see, Canada. All of these places, we have the overnight samples that come in, and we buy labels for them to come in like first, but they still sometimes come in at like 3 p.m. But we stay until we are done and out of there.
That's awesome. So our guys in Texas, we won't notice a delay or anything on those lab processing.
No, you should not notice any delay at all. And by the way, next time you're in, you should stop by my office. I've just improved it down there. Added some multiple screen setups. I have some great pictures on the wall. There's a picture of me with a monkey. I named the monkey Jamie.
Where'd you take a picture of a monkey?
Beach somewhere. Don't worry about
it. Somewhere beach. Got it. Somewhere beach with the monkey.
Yes, I was just lost in the world somewhere with Rob Lemoyne. He's always gone. He's never home. And if you find him, there's usually a monkey nearby.
All right. Is there any other questions that I should be asking that maybe I didn't?
No, I don't think so. Well, okay, I'll give you a couple. Setting up your guys' trucks. So number one tip I will give you is to have at least 10, 15 spore traps and 10 to 15 swabs on their trucks at all time. Have 2 or 3 labels at all times. Keep it simple. Do a little Excel spreadsheet for inventory so they don't walk off with the stuff or sell it behind your back. There'll be some inventory loss like there is with everything, but I think that that's a pretty good number. I would not hand, unless they're rocking it, I would not hand most of your guys a box of 50 cassettes. That's $250 worth of stuff that is lettuce, right? I mean, it's going to go bad in a year or two when it expires, and it could just be sitting on the truck. And a lot of people lose money doing that. Your guy will lose that in the bottom of his truck. Let's see what else.
If you have expired traps, are you able to revitalize them?
No,
They're dead.
They're dead. Now here's. I wouldn't want to put this out in a circular or something, but the reason they expire in 1 to 2 years is because the media will dry up. Well, we came up with our own media recently, Breeze Spore Traps, and we believe we have an almost virtually identical media as the most popular ones in the industry. That's why we're so confident putting them out there and developing them in under 2 years, which is lightning fast for a biotech kind of thing. But we're constantly changing them a little bit, and we're doing something that I don't think anybody did when they made these spore traps. And so the future is bright on this. Every single day we take 10 of them aside, and we put them in different weather environments or different temperatures, different humidities, and we're keeping them there. And we're going to figure out, okay, with this little change here, with this improvement here, what happens 3 years from now? Are they still working? And why are they working? In what environments were they good to go? Which ones were they not? Sometimes people will accidentally find a 4-year-old cassette run a sample through it. It comes to our lab, and we do not like just send it back and say, hey, take one with a non-expired cassette. We crack it open, we put it on a plate, we look at it. If the spore's stuck, it doesn't matter. Like, look, if the milk expired 3 years ago, but it tastes great to you, suck that stuff down. But if it works and it gave us, viable test results, then great. Sometimes people do it, do this 3 months after expiration date, and they come in dried up and nothing stuck to them.
Yeah, that happened to me a long time ago.
Yeah. So don't do that. I think that's about it. Oh, I'll just touch on one other thing. A majority of our samples today come in through the PriorityLab Inspector Lab app, available for every type of mobile device. We're starting to see some of the report writers and inspection software features out there include some of these, like they do recall check today. I mean, you can still use the recall check app, many do, but right within Horizon, right within, I think Spectora even has a picture upload for recalls. And let's see, HIP definitely does. They have our latest recall check integration deployed in their HIP 6. So those are all good, but on the PriorityLab app, it's going to be a while till they're there. I would highly recommend using it. And one of the features inside that app that you definitely want to use is the picture of the shipping label. So we have a place on every chain of custody. It's a digital chain of custody. Take a picture of the shipping label. That way, when you go online and you check for search to see the chain of custody and go, have the results, deployed yet? And we're trying to find it. We're trying to track it down. We have it right there. It makes so much sense. We can see the samples. We can predict when they're coming in. We can staff appropriately. We can tell people that they're going to have to be there until 9 p.m. and, bill Uncle Nathan for some double and triple time. Thanks, guys. And we can do all of that because we can predictively model it, which we can't do if we don't know when these things are going to hit.
No, that makes sense. You want to give out a promo code for the end of this interview if they watched all the way through?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. You know what? Here's the promo code. Stop using your shitty, more expensive lab. Seriously though, this video is not going out largely to the whole industry. This was for top members, for their inspectors, for everybody to understand the sales process, build your own a little bit, and not be so technical. Because for those of you who have spent time with our lab director, Dr. Shane, like, he is the most knowledgeable guy in this business, which is great. The problem is he's the most knowledgeable guy in this business. I am proudly less knowledgeable, and hopefully going to help you put more money in your pocket, more money in your guys' pockets. And that's what this is for. So training for top members, we're going to keep adding to it. Can't thank Shawn enough for being here to ask me the really tough questions. Right. Well, have a good one. Keep crushing it, Shawn, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
See you later.